Okay, let's jump straight into a conversation that really gives us a direct line into how one of the biggest players, maybe the biggest player in cloud and AI is thinking right now.
Hmm.
We're doing a deep dive into insights from the CEO of AWS. This was after their first year in the job.
That's right. And it was a chance, not just to look back at the year, but really to lay out the strategic vision. What's next?
Especially in AI, right, which is just exploding.
Absolutely. The whole generative AI space.
Exactly. So our mission here for this deep dive
Mm.
is pretty clear. Pull out the most important stuff, the key nuggets about their AI strategy, their growth,
Uh-huh.
the tech they're building, infrastructure plans,
Hmm.
all coming directly from what the CEO actually said.
Yeah, think of it like getting the blueprint, straight from the top.
Okay, so let's unpack it. Looking back at that first year, a big theme was just the pace of innovation.
Incredible pace, yeah.
And maybe even more, how fast customers are adopting things.
Right.
The CEO specifically mentioned an explosion in AI
Mm.
and generative AI.
And it wasn't just the AI bit, it was also that customers are increasingly moving everything, their whole IT
Their
setup
entire states, yeah.
into the cloud, not just dabbling anymore.
Foundational shift for a lot of companies,
Definitely.
which I guess brings us to the scale of it all. They dropped a number. Pretty eye-opening.
Uh-huh.
The AWS AI business, already a multi-billion-dollar run rate in sales,
Yeah, that's a huge number. But what's maybe more interesting is like what makes up that number?
right? What's in the multi-billions?
It's not just one thing. So first, it's revenue from customers just, running their own AI models.
On AWS infrastructure.
Exactly, renting the compute, the storage, all that.
Okay, so the basic building blocks. What else?
Then there's revenue from their managed services, like Amazon Bedrock.
Ah, but Bedrock.
Yeah, where AWS hosts models, their own, like Amazon Nova,
Right.
but also third-party ones. Anthropic's Claude models are a big example there.
Gotcha. So providing ready-made models as a service.
Precisely. It gives customers choice. They don't have to build from scratch if they don't want to.
Makes sense. Is there a third piece?
Yep. The figure also includes revenue from higher-level AI applications. Think Amazon Q.
Okay, the AI assistant for developers and businesses.
Right. Stuff like automated code generation, other AI tools built on top of the foundation model, so that multi-billion run rate. It's a mix. Compute, hosted models, and those AI apps.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. Almost paradoxical, maybe?
How so?
Well, you've got this massive multi-billion-dollar business right now,
Yeah.
but the CEO came out with this really strong conviction,
Yeah.
saying AI is still just in its earliest stages.
Oh, absolutely. The conviction was like total. The quote was that AI will completely transform every single customer,
Wow.
every single business, every single industry, and really every single job.
Every single job. So that multi-billion-dollar business today.
Is just the start. That's what they said.
What does that tell you about their long game?
Well, it says they think the current wave, big as it feels, is just scratching the surface. This isn't just another product line for them. It's like a fundamental shift for the whole economy, and it's barely begun.
And you see that belief in where they're putting their effort, right?
Yeah, you see it inside Amazon itself first.
Yeah.
They talked about using Gen AI for like optimizing fulfillment center.
Core to their business.
Totally. And summarizing retail reviews, helping shoppers find stuff.
Improving the customer experience.
Right. And in Alexa Plus, for more natural conversations, it's like woven into their own operations.
And for customers.
They see AI being used everywhere, from, making contact centers smarter with Amazon Connect,
Okay.
all the way down to folks building their own custom models from the ground up, choosing the chips they run on.
Whether that's AWS's own silicon
Or NVIDIA chips, yeah. They support that whole spectrum.
Okay, this brings us to a really key technical point that came up. Training versus inference.
Yeah, this is super important. It tells you where the bulk of AI use is heading.
Right. So quickly, what's the difference again?
Okay, simple version. Training is building the model, feeding it tons of data so it learns.
Learning the patterns, the capabilities.
Exactly. Inference is, well, it's using the model that's already trained.
To actually do something.
Right. Generate text, analyze a picture, make a prediction, whatever the task is.
Okay. Training is building. Inference is doing. Got it.
And the CEO pointed out a big shift happening now.
With that.
Early days of Gen AI, lots of focus, lots of compute went into training those huge models.
Makes sense. You had to build them first.
But now, they're seeing, and the quote was, "Definitely more usage is inference than training."
That feels significant, a real pivot.
It is. And looking forward, they expect that gap to widen a lot.
How much?
The prediction was, over the fullness of time, 80%, 90%, the vast majority of usage is going to be in inference.
80 to 90%.
Yeah, so think about what that means. The main activity isn't constantly building new models.
It's putting the existing ones to work.
Exactly. Embedding them into, tons of different applications, different workflows. Inference is how AI really spreads out and becomes, well, normal.
So AI stops being this, separate thing you go to.
Right.
And becomes more like storage or a database, just a core part of how apps work.
That's precisely how they framed it. Inference becomes a core building block.
Okay.
Delivering benefits, new features, better experiences, often without you, the user, even thinking, oh, I'm using AI now. It's just better.
Okay, thinking about measuring AI activity, the idea of token growth comes up a lot, right? Especially for language models.
Yeah, they touched on that.
What was it?
They acknowledge tokens are one way to measure things, especially for straightforward text generation.
Input tokens, output tokens.
Right, but they were pretty clear. It's not the only one. And maybe not even the best measure for complex AI tasks.
Wait, what's the limitation?
Well, think about models that do more complex reasoning or coding or research.
So,
the number of words going in and coming out might be small, but it doesn't capture the actual computational work happening inside the model. They mention models that can, quote, think for hours, doing research, trying different code approaches, like you see with Q developers.
Right, iterating internally.
Exactly, before it spits out the final answer. So just counting those input-output tokens, it misses all that internal effort.
So tokens are just the surface level for those kinds of tasks.
Pretty much. They're one aspect, but maybe not the best measure of how much work is being done, especially as models get smarter. Good reminder not to fixate on just one metric.
Okay. Now, speaking of complex work and building models, there was this reveal about Project Olympus.
Yeah, this sounds impressive.
What is it?
It's described as a massive custom server design project, a huge collaboration between AWS and Anthropic.
Anthropic, the AI lab behind Claude.
Yeah.
What are they building together?
They're building the largest compute cluster, purpose-built for Anthropic to train their next generation of Claude models.
Wow, largest cluster. And the tech.
This is key. They're using Amazon's own custom chips, their accelerators called Trainium 2.
AWS's own AI silicon.
Yep. Chips designed by AWS specifically for these kinds of massive AI workloads.
So this isn't just Anthropic renting standard servers. This is like a bespoke AI supercomputer being co-designed.
That's exactly the picture. And the scale. It's enormous. They said more than 5 times the size of the cluster compared to the last one Anthropic used.
5 times? That's a huge jump.
Massive leap, not just incremental.
And is this like a future plan or happening now?
That was the other striking part. It's happening now. The CEO said they are landing training on Trainium 2 servers now.
Already?
Yeah, they're in operation. Anthropic is already using parts of that cluster.
Oh.
And the feedback on Trainium 2 performance, very impressive, pushing the limits on speed, cost effectiveness, and just raw scale for training.
Okay, so building their own chips like Trainium 2, that ties right into something else they hear a lot, right? The cost of AI.
Absolutely. They acknowledge that feedback directly. AI is still too expensive for a lot of people, a lot of uses.
Right. So if it's too expensive, how do they plan to tackle that to make it more accessible?
2 main paths were mentioned. First, innovation at the silicon level.
Like Trainium 2.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Building more efficient, cheaper chips purpose-built for AI. Second path is innovation on the software side and algorithmic side.
Meaning?
Finding smarter ways to do the AI work training or inference using less compute power underneath. So attacking the cost problem from both hardware and software angles.
Now, when you talk about custom AWS chips like Trainium, the elephant in the room is NVIDIA, right? They dominate the AI chip market. So is this Trainium 2 versus NVIDIA? How do they position it?
Yeah, the CEO was really clear on this. It's not that framing, not versus. They see plenty of room for both. Called NVIDIA an incredibly fantastic platform, acknowledged it's the leading platform for many, many applications.
So respect for NVIDIA's position.
Definitely. And AWS works closely with them. They're a design partner, making sure they get the latest NVIDIA technology and push what it can do.
Okay.
The core idea for AWS is customer choice. Their job, as they see it, is to give customers as much choice as possible.
So you can use Trainium if it fits, or NVIDIA or other stuff too.
Exactly. And they mentioned that top AI labs, they're excited about using Trainium 2 alongside NVIDIA, not necessarily replacing it. It's about having options.
Got it. And just to be sure, are those latest NVIDIA chips actually available on AWS now?
Yep. Specifically mentioned P6 instances. That's the ones with NVIDIA's Grace Blackwell tech.
Okay, the newest stuff.
Yeah. They are available on AWP today. Customers are using them and liking them. Performance is fantastic.
And demand.
Strong demand. So AWS is aggressively ramping capacity for those P6 instances globally.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Beyond the hardware, what about partners? Anthropic is a huge partner building Project Olympus on AWS.
Right.
But Anthropic also makes Claude available on other clouds, like Azure. How does AWS view that?
The answer was surprisingly chill. Basically, great and okay, too.
Really? Just okay. You'd think they might want exclusivity.
Well, the reasoning given was pretty straightforward. Lots of AWS's customers make their own apps and services available everywhere, other clouds, on-prem.
Ah, okay. So they get it.
Yeah, they understand. Businesses want flexibility. So AWS's focus isn't trying to lock partners in,
What is the focus then?
just making AWS the single best place to run every type of workload, period.
So that includes running Claude, sure, but also all the other stuff, databases, regular apps, analytics.
Exactly. They use Mondelez as an example, going all in with AWB, migrating old Windows stuff to Linux,
Right.
using AI for optimization, saving money, making their core platform more secure, more reliable. It's about the whole package.
So the strategy is be the best, broadest platform overall. And trust the capability will win out, even if some individual pieces, like one AI model, are also somewhere else.
That's the idea. Be the most technically capable platform with the most and widest set of services. They're perfectly happy if others are available elsewhere.
And they even hope for reciprocity.
Yeah, they mentioned hoping to see open AI models on us this year, so suggesting an openness going both ways.
Okay, now, all this growth, the AI boom, inference taking off, Project Olympus, it needs a ton of physical infrastructure, right? Data centers.
Oh, yeah. Massive amounts.
So what do they say about expansion?
Confirmed they're continuing to expand capacity pretty aggressively globally, just trying to keep up with demand.
Any specific areas mentioned?
Latin America got a shout out. A new region in Mexico launched earlier this year.
How's that going?
Really well received. They also
Right.
announced a new one coming in Chile. And they already have Brazil, which is popular, hosts big banks and stuff. So expanding rapidly there.
Okay. What about Europe?
Europe already has quite a few AWS regions. But the big news there is something called the European Sovereign Cloud.
Sovereign cloud. What's that?
It's launching at the end of this year. Described as a unique capability, it's designed totally separately, completely for critical EU-focused sovereign workloads.
Ah, addressing those data location and control rules in Europe.
Exactly. For government-regulated industries, making sure the data stays in the EU, operated by EU staff, addressing those specific sovereignty needs.
That really shows infrastructure isn't just about building more, it's about building the right kind in the right places, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's scale, but also specialization for different market requirements.
Okay, so let's wrap up this deep dive. We've covered a lot from that CEO conversation.
Mm-hmm.
What are the absolute must-remember takeaways for listeners?
I think number one is just the sheer scale already. AWS has a multi-billion-dollar AI business today, driven by customers really adopting it and that broader trend of moving everything to the cloud.
Right. And number two, for me, is the massive strategic importance of inference. That's the future, embedding AI everywhere, not just training models.
Definitely. Then there's the tech approach, that dual strategy. Building their own custom silicon, like Trainium 2 for huge projects like Olympus, while also being a top partner for NVIDIA, offering the latest chips. It's all about giving customers choice at that foundational level.
Yeah, choice seems key. And underpinning all of it, that aggressive global build-out of data centers.
Massive infrastructure expansion, including tailored solutions like that European sovereign cloud, putting the capacity and the right capabilities where they're needed.
And maybe the biggest takeaway, the CEO's view that even this multi-billion-dollar business is just the absolute beginning.
Yeah, just the start of a massive transformation.
Which kind of leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. If the CEO is right, if AI really is just getting started and is going to transform everything.
Businesses, industries, jobs.
Right. And if AWS is already building infrastructure like Project Olympus and expanding globally at this scale today, specifically to handle that future.
What does that imply about the sheer size, the sheer impact of the changes we might actually see unfold, not in decades, but maybe just in the next few years? What does that future look like?